Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube. Welcome to Season 3. If you enjoy listening to our show, consider subscribing to us on YouTube for exclusive video content. Thank you and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Beppe are your hosts today, and our friend Derek is back with us. And today we are finishing up our Metal Gear Solid retrospective with Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Much like the title of that game, this one might hurt, so everyone prepare yourselves. Before we start, and before I kick this to Beppe, I did have a little anecdote that is very precious to me about this game. We're going to give our audience a little origin story here.
Yep.
I believe Metal Gear Solid 5 is when Beppe and I became friends. So we're going to talk about that for just a moment.
Sure.
I believe, so the prologue to this game was a game called Ground Zeroes.
That's correct.
And when it came out, I think this is the first video game debate that you and I ever had.
Sure.
I think it was on Facebook, and you and I were discussing if that game should have cost any money. Like, should it have been free? Should they have retailed it? So I think, so this game is only special to me because it's how you and I became friends. Everything that has to do with the game, not really. So why don't we get into it? And this one might hurt. So let's start.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into Ground Zeroes. I'm very thrilled to be talking about this with you folks today because I don't believe anyone that I follow in an academic sense has really gotten into it. I haven't, I feel like at the time there was a lot of high praise for this game, critical praise, and it was really strange to us because it just felt kind of, I think everyone is pretty much on the same wavelength about this game now. So I'd like to start this off by saying that this is the first Metal Gear that really requires homework to start out. So he had been sort of playing around with this idea for a while, evidently, where we are kind of going back to, since Solid Snake's story is wrapped up, we're filling in the gaps of Big Boss's life leading up to the original Metal Gear 1 and 2. So I think the first one that came out was Portable Ops. You ever hear about that one?
I didn't play it.
Yeah, it's very kind of I don't think he personally like oversaw it or anything, but it's kind of about like Big Boss. I think this is where he meets Miller for the first time, Campbell, all those fucks, and it's about like kind of kidnapping soldiers or bringing them over to your side. And this was further explored in another portable title, Peace Walker. So this game is like, it's so odd that it's this important because it's a portable title and it was ported to the HD collection along with 2 and 3. And it's so weird because I was like, I might as well play it. Like I played the other two and it's okay for a portable game. It's okay. But it's like, so basically the point of it is that Big Boss is building up his army in the 70s. There's a lot of like Costa Rica, Nicaragua, kind of Sandinista stuff going on. And you're building up this huge base in the ocean called Mother Base. And there's a lot of like kind of micromanaging and assigning your soldiers to different units, etc. So I played this. I don't believe you guys did.
I didn't play Peace Walker, no.
I showed Derek like the game movie or something on YouTube because it was very necessary to fully understand.
Which is odd because it's not one of the main numbered entries. But anyway, continue.
No. Yeah, and it was it's especially odd and hard for me to take seriously because it ends with the last boss fight in this game is Big Boss fighting a Metal Gear while J-Pop plays and holding it up with his two hands all by himself.
Oh my God.
As if he wouldn't be crushed instantly. So it's like it's a really odd thing that this is like super important. But it introduces like some like the characters.
It's very strange that like Peace Walker, a PSP game, it has a ton of origin to like making it. If you played that, Metal Gear Solid 5 is going to make more sense.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, so many of the characters, you have no idea what's going on.
A lot of it, yeah. And a lot of it is, kind of the origins of kind of filling in the gaps with how much artificial intelligence is a part of like 2 and 4. And this is kind of like the birth of it, like, huge giant computers and stuff. I mean, if you're getting into this series, I recommend at least reading like the Wikipedia synopsis or something.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty important. So we are going to move past that and get into Ground Zeroes here. So this is set at the pretty much like a year after Peace Walker, and it is about Big Boss going to Cuba to rescue a Chico, who is a little boy
From Peace Walker. You'd have no idea who he was if you didn't play Peace Walker.
I just, there's a lot of like camp that they got away with because it was a portable game that I just don't think translated once it got really serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this game in general is a lot more serious in tone than the previous ones. It's very heavy duty. So you're looking for him and Paz, who was a girl pretending to be a student in the previous one, and then she turned out to be a secret agent, and she is the one you fight while J-Pop plays, and she's wearing her bikini.
Let's be clear. By previous one, he means Peace Walker, which again, if you did not play that game, you'd have no idea who this person was.
Yep, exactly.
And she's pretty important to the story of Ground Zeroes, but continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it's it's a Marine base that you're entering, and it's very kind of it seems very high stakes, pretty cool. I like the setup of this a lot, where it's raining and you see all this shit going on, and you see this mysterious man who is all burned up, and he's in like a cowboy outfit, and it introduces him as Skullface, and he's in it for a couple seconds, and and then he takes off in a helicopter.
Oh
right?
boy.
So I would like to get into this as its own game and pretty much everything that it introduced before we get into Phantom Pain, which has its own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one thing I'd like to talk about is the price point of this game.
Yes, this is when you and I became friends.
Because here's the thing. There is no way that this should have cost as much as it
was
did.
It $25 retail? 20?
40.
Whoa! Wow, it's even worse than I remember.
Because 20 was my guess.
I think it may have been even higher than current gen consoles.
Ouch!
That's what I paid for it on like 360 or whatever the fuck I bought it for.
Okay.
So 40, and it is very, very short. It's one main mission that lasts maybe a little over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some bonus stuff, but it's pretty ridiculous. It's kind of what I think it ultimately was Kojima needing to show Konami that they could turn a profit on this, and like just kind of because the production had been going on for so long.
Do you think they needed the cash injection? Like, why else did they do this? It's like it's a 1 or 2 hour game that retailed for upwards of $40.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jesus Christ, man.
So pretty brutal, and it's just kind of it. If it was a little bit more, I guess the price tag is as honest as it gets.
Yeah.
Because it was a little more upfront about like play the demo of, because it's not like, it's kind of like the tanker mission in a way.
Yes.
For reasons we'll get into later, but it's just sort of the preamble of this thing. If it had been like in another Konami game or something, I mean, it's a little big for that, but that's what happened with Zone of the Enders.
Yep.
MGS2. The tanker chapter was part of that as a demo.
Okay.
So I think that maybe would have been in the days of yore what they would have done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to say that this has a very well structured map. I think it's a pretty tightly designed base. Like there's not. I mean, you can game it pretty hard, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot of tricks and ways into it and different paths and stuff like that. Did you guys have anything to say about the Ground Zeroes map? Because there's not
not really much that you haven't said already. It's immersive, it's enjoyable to play in.
Tense atmosphere.
Yeah, it's for how small it is. There's plenty of neat sandbox elements.
Well, I also think I think I am just so turned off by how much it cost that I scoff whenever that comes up. Like whenever Ground Zeroes comes up in any conversation, I get annoyed.
Right,
sure.
Because the other problem with that is, because I always wonder how possible it would have been to include it as just part of the Phantom Pain.
Sure.
Because a handful of my friends of mine played the Phantom Pain without having played Ground Zeroes first.
Really?
And how confusing must that have been for
Terrible.
them?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Exactly. Right. I think our friend Nick did that, where
Really?
I had to ask him, did you play Ground Zeroes first? He said no. And that's why he was mind blown by the twist at the end. But of course, I don't want to get ahead of myself on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, I guess despite like how how upset we are at certain aspects of this game, I do want to kind of analyze it a little bit here. I'd like to say that the presentation in general of this whole MGS5 experience is very, very profoundly good. It's the cutscene direction in particular is very, very well considered. A lot of the characters, the way they move with a lot of sort of presence and poise. They're very kind of, it just feels like on another level than the previous. I mean, 4, I didn't really give much credit, but the animations were very good. This one just takes it to a whole new level.
Well, I also think MGS5 in general, I think is the first time, you could maybe say in 4 it was the first time, but I think Metal Gear Solid 5, whether it's Ground Zeroes or the Phantom Pain, it's the first time you see Metal Gear Solid finally become a next-gen game. It plays awesome. It looks awesome. It's not one of these, well, the game is cool, but it plays like shit.
Yeah.
It finally doesn't have
the
a
controls
but.
are incredible.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like the first time like Metal Gear Solid like plays like shit like up until this point.
Right.
In my not so humble opinion.
Yeah.
But keep going.
No, completely. And I really like, I just want to, all this stuff like the aiming and weapon switching and stuff, it all feels very modern.
Mhm.
And something I really like about it that is very appreciated in a stealth game is the button that just makes you dive out of the way. Do you remember that?
Wait a minute. We actually have stumbled upon a Greg gaming mantra by mistake.
What's that?
Any game with a Mega Man roll, I like it better.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's Gears of War, Mega Man, Metal Gear, give me a button where I can just like dive out of the way of something. That's what I want.
It's just awesome, and it's just like one of those things like spinning the swords in KOTOR. Like it's just a satisfying thing to do. Very, very helpful. I want to talk about, while we're almost still on the map here, you get the iDroid, which is fascinating that this takes place in the 1970s.
Yep.
And you have a little a modern smartphone that displays.
That's right.
Like
So this-
holographically.
This is the first one that has a map like that. It's that, I think 4 had one, but this one is like, it is very much like almost like a full kind of RPG thing where
Yep.
you're just like, it's an open-ended kind of thing. And instead of having like a radar or anything, you are marking enemies. Do you remember this? Where
Yes.
you zoom in on them and they just kind of stay stuck in your UI. What I guess it's supposed to represent your situational awareness, which is ridiculous, but I appreciated it. Like it made the game more.
Yeah, I think they got
it.
it from Battlefield Bad Company 2.
Oh, really?
Because in that game you tag when let's say you're playing online and let's say you're sniping through a sniper scope, there's a button to mark enemies in your vision. They're like little arrows.
I like that. I like that in like multiplayer games too,
Yep.
because communicating with people.
That's the
but
first time I saw that.
Pretty cool. And I would like to also bring up that there is no camo meter at all in this game.
Yep, that's right.
After the last couple, you kind of had the iron boots problem in 3, where you're switching in and out of menus. The previous one had the octa camo, and this one it's just kind of a general. How visible are you? Like it's not.
Yeah,
like,
it's more of
measured.
like a modern stealth game where like it has to kind of do with lights and darkness, and
You get a little glare that kind of represents when
Yeah.
people.
Right, so
can
I
see
don't
you
I don't
and stuff.
remember that being in Ground Zeroes. I think that the being able to switch what kind of camo you're wearing, I thought that was introduced in the Phantom Pain.
No, I mean I'm talking about there's only one suit in this game.
Yeah.
In Ground Zeroes.
Yeah,
right.
And then like it helps you later on when you have the camos in Phantom Pain, but it's not like the same. There's no percentage on the screen.
Yeah,
Exactly,
Anything
that's
like
what I'm
that.
referring
There's no
to.
numerical system.
So yeah, pretty cool. The helicopter is a big thing in this. They introduce where you can kind of call it down to different points. Morpho is your guy in this one. You can just kind of pick your LZ, or you can call them in for fire support, that kind of thing. You can rescue prisoners in this, which is kind of a interesting callback to the very, very first Metal Gear, where you did that to get health. I think they may be even wearing the same suits. There is a day and night cycle introduced in this game. Spotlights, which are not super common in MGS. I was thinking about like they're only kind of in 1-3 in this game.
Yeah, there aren't many.
And it's so interesting because I associate it so fervently with stealth
With stealth
stuff,
games and
know.
spotlights and yeah.
Yeah, like and so there's a couple different things you can mess around with the environment in this one. Like you shut down the power,
Yeah.
and they'll come looking for it, and the AI is pretty good. That's something I'd like to say. You can finally pick up weapons in this one.
Yes, that's right.
And they're all made up.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
They're not after the MGS4, Drebin shop where you had literally like every weapon known to man. They're all. I think it was because he saw it as giving money to the firearms industry.
Sure.
And so he
didn't want to pay for the licenses, the trademarks.
Yeah. So basically, pretty robust little experience. Unfortunately, way too much money.
It's way too expensive.
I would like to mention that this is the first appearance of Kiefer Sutherland as Big Boss. Do you want to talk about his performance a little bit?
I think that I thought Kiefer Sutherland did a very good job in both of these games.
Yeah.
But I just think the situation surrounding it was pretty offensive.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Like David Hayter was Snake in every game. He's fan beloved. He was a great guy to work with, and Kojima just chose not to use him.
Yeah.
And Kojima, I don't think. Then again, I don't know the guy personally. I never talked to him.
Yeah.
I don't think he disparaged David Hayter on purpose, but he kind of did.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? He had some quote where I just don't think David would have portrayed this emotion of Snake or this version of Snake the way I wanted, but you didn't even try.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he kind of disparaged him a little.
We should bring up that in MGS3 he wanted Kurt Russell to voice Snake.
Yeah.
And he couldn't afford Kurt Russell back then.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's not the first time that he's tried to replace him, and it sucks because I've heard this also about the actress who plays Quiet. She was not asked. He originally offered a role to her for Death Stranding and just never called her back. So I think
it's a habit with this guy.
Yeah. So basically, I would like to clarify that I have a lot of respect for Kojima and his creative vision, but he's done a couple things that I think are just kind of not very tactful
or business friendly.
I mean,
I like Kiefer as Big Boss a lot in this game. It just makes no sense in universe considering this game takes place 1 year after Peace Walker.
Yeah.
In which Big Boss is still voiced by David Hayter.
They've changed voices for other characters before, but if it's Snake, it's very, very
because
noticeable.
To be honest, I do have a hard time imagining David Hayter's voice as Big Boss in this game with such a. I mean, let's be fair. His voice is pretty campy in the previous entries leading up to now, and in a game so with such a dark and serious tone, I think Kiefer fits the role much better. I do still feel kind of bad for David Hayter.
For sure.
Because was he let go in the same way? He just didn't get a call back to do 5?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it's just, I think you maybe articulate a little bit better than me, where I think Kiefer Sutherland did a really good job and it was a really good fit, but I think everyone just feels bad for David Hayter.
Yeah,
maybe he wasn't treated in the best way.
Yeah.
Also, you're right. David Hayter's voice acting job in all these games is very campy. Mm-hmm. And if Kojima wanted to move on from him, I understand that.
Because I just can't imagine because Big Boss's entrance in Ground Zeroes,
yeah,
pretty awesome when he climbs up the side of the mountain,
yeah,
and he raises his night vision goggles and says, "Kept you waiting, huh?"
Yeah,
I just can't imagine that having been. Kept you waiting, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we all pretty much, and it sucked because fans were they didn't believe David Hayter. They were like, oh, he's totally in it as Solid Snake,
they thought it was like a
double
switchy.
Awesome. So moving on, I would like to mention that Miller is a lot more prominent in this one.
Yes.
And it kind of carries over into the Phantom Pain where. He's a fake character in MGS1 and a pretty principal character in Peace Walker, a game that no one played. Mm-hmm. And now he is kind of at the forefront, and I really love his voice actor. Mm-hmm. I think he is steals the show completely.
Nice.
It's just unbelievable because it's like you said, it's a lot more serious in tone, and it's hard because there was a mission in Peace Walker where he's like in his underwear running around and shit, and it's okay, so we got to take this guy seriously now, and he does an exceptional job at changing it. Robin Downs is his name. So I think that's. So should we just get into the plot here? And then,
let's get right into it because there's a lot to discuss.
So basically, it's just you sneak into this base, you rescue the little boy. He has a headphone jack in his chest for some reason. I never got that. Do you remember this? Where he is he's has headphones that are plugged into his chest.
Yeah, I don't know why,
vaguely.
but yeah,
I vaguely remember that.
It was just weird that it was never explained. Anyway,
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it up really quick.
Huh.
So you rescue Paz, and she is really fucked up.
Yes.
And you get her back on the chopper, and you realize that when you've been away, the mother base that I mentioned you have been building up in Peace Walker has been destroyed by this unknown faction, right? And it hit me a lot harder because I spent a lot of fucking hours playing that. But if if you didn't, then
It doesn't
you wouldn't
matter.
have that.
Yeah, you
that
feel
reaction.
nothing because if you weren't aware of the Peace Walker story, even you would have no idea what this place even is. Or what the
Yeah,
significance
just kind
it
of like
is.
an independent kind of where Big Boss's army chills out. Like most of them are killed. It's a very like Order 66.
Right, because you find
kinda
out that
scene.
because like you find out that the mission was a setup to get Snake and Miller away from Mother Base, so that the enemy faction XOF, which stands for Fox spelled backwards, can attack. Hold on, because Huey, a character from Peace Walker, who incidentally is Hal Emmerich,
father.
Hal Emmerich's father, he agrees to a faux inspection, which I think they think it's the UN coming to see what's on the up and up.
Their capabilities
Right.
are nuclear weapons, etc.
But it turns out it was all a ruse. It was just XOF coming to burn the place down.
Yeah.
and
So I'd like to briefly mention here that Fox is from Metal Gear Solid 3. It stands for Force Operation X. So what does XOF stand for? We will
Operation
never know.
Force.
Knowing Kojima, I could see that being it.
Yeah.
Dude, this is already a mess. So just like keep it going.
All right.
What's
So
next?
listen, this I found out this was supposed to be playable. This whole, and I
Oh,
always
wow.
thought it would be, and I guess they just to rush it out the door, they skipped
Mhm.
it. It kind of lends itself well, I guess, that there's nothing you could do to stop it, so you can't even play it. So this is a part where I just want to mention this is the end of Ground Zeroes, where Paz has a bomb in her stomach, and so there's a very graphic cutscene where they take it out and sew her up and everything, and the big V scar and everything. And so you're about to go about your business, like everyone's escaping from Mother Base, and she wakes up and says, "There's a bomb," and they're like, "Yeah, we got it." And then she says, "No, there's another one." And they go, "Where?" Yeah. I'm like, come on, man.
No.
So she jumps off the helicopter, and it explodes, and it just cuts to black. And I'm like, that was like the fucking worst ending ever.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I don't want to say this was on purpose, but when I started the Phantom Pain, I was very, very much struck by how tasteful it was and how like the pacing was incredible and everything. And it almost made like Ground Zeroes look bad by comparison. Like,
Okay.
the story presentation, like it has
Sure.
Big Boss like very
Yeah.
like
Oh, I
action
liked
hero.
that. I thought it was fine.
I mean, but it was very like campy, like so it's like it's ridiculous.
I'm not sure I felt that. We should talk about the medic in the helicopter before we move on to.
Okay,
the
so
Phantom Pain.
when they're getting the bomb out of her, there is a medic who is he has a balaclava on, you can't see his face, and his voice is Kiefer Sutherland's but pitched down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make a little bookmark of that. And we're gonna move on here.
Yep.
So the Phantom Pain. I love that. Like, I can't overstate how much I loved this intro both times. Like, it just like
The hospital.
it renders me speechless. How good. I mean, maybe my favorite part of the whole series.
Sure.
So the whole openings, but even before you get into like the start menu, they make you play Big Boss waking up from a coma.
Yeah.
9 years after the events of Ground Zeroes, and you're just kind of moving your head around. It's kind of it's doing the Halo thing a little bit, getting your stick orientation and stuff, and the way it's paced very, very well. You hear the distorted Man Who Sold the World in the background. It's a cover, and it just sounds great. It's just a very kind of disorienting experience overall. And so eventually, you find out that you've lost your left arm, and you have a bunch of foreign bodies in you, including a piece of shrapnel in your forehead. And it's supposed to look like a horn, like a demonic horn, right? So at a certain point, they ask you, they say, we're trying to hide you from your enemies. We need to rearrange your face. So there is this you can get as deep into it as you want, like changing all your different features and stuff. And at a certain point, you finish it, and it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I was very confused by that because I spent so long trying to make it look like the big boss I saw in the trailers. Yeah. I'm like, dude, fuck that. I want to play as like that guy.
Yeah,
he's so cool looking. I want to be that. So they didn't tell me I'd have to play as my own face. That's ridiculous.
Right.
And then to my relief, after you finish customizing that face, it turns out that you still are the big boss that you saw in the trailers.
Yep.
But I spent so long like trying to construct that face,
and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what winds up, I thought it was a very cool scene where this woman comes in the background of the doctor talking to you, she garrots like the nurse. And then does the same thing to you. So basically, like at this point, Big Boss can't really speak. He's very, very weak. Because he's been in the coma for so long, and you have to kind of watch your expression as the lady is strangled behind, and he can't say anything to the doctor.
Right.
Very, very tense scene. And so she winds up killing the doctor as well. And you wind up getting saved by a character called Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
And who also has Kiefer Sutherland's voice.
Yeah, this is where I immediately cracked the game. Although I'm not going to get into that.
But
right
okay, so this character, his head is covered in bandages, and you kind of get the impression maybe he's in your mind or something, like just kind of a weird demeanor and everything. And he kind of is leading you through the tutorial of this part. There's a pretty cool aspect because in the beginning you're only crawling because he hasn't regained use of his legs, and gradually because he gives you a drug, you start to gradually stand up. And I associated this with like Big Boss's like rebirth almost, but it from what I read about, because there's not a lot of behind the scenes stuff about this game because of reasons we'll get to, but what I found out was that it's supposed to kind of echo the like evolution of humans standing up and like Sahelanthropus later and everything. And a pretty cool idea. But it's a very, very tense sequence where a bunch of like men are coming in to like light you up, and you're pretty much completely defenseless. And it's like it's so fucking tense. You have to like hide under like hospital beds and stuff. And
do you remember the part when you have to hide under bodies or like hide amongst people on the floor?
And then the soldiers come down the hallway and start double tapping the bodies, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just so cool because it's stealth, but in like a totally new lens. You know what I mean? And it's really exceptional. And then so we need to get into the fact that Psycho Mantis is in this game.
Yep.
As a child. And I like his character design a lot. They gave him like a bunch of frizzy hair, which is like just a choice that works. And accompanied by what appears to be Colonel Volgin.
Yep.
But he doesn't speak, and he's just on fire.
Yes, he's referred to as the man on fire throughout the game. And that's about all they do with it. So it's like I can imagine them like pitching ideas back and forth. All right, so we're gonna have a side villain called the Man on Fire. Oh, so what's his deal? He's on fire. Oh,
that's it.
And yeah, so this guy is like really OP, and he's like he just kind of continually running into him. And you get rescued by Ocelot, who is a middle-aged man now. And I really thought they nailed kind of the presentation of this character. Like he just looks like a perfect kind of middle ground between like the young and old version.
It's Troy Baker, right?
It's Troy Baker.
Yeah.
Yep. He does a great job. I've heard mixed reviews about his voice, but
I like Ocelot a lot in this game.
I think he did a good job.
Yeah, I think he's a well-realized character, I guess. And there's a really cool kind of escape sequence that kind of mirrors the Jeeps from MGS1, but you're on horses.
Yep.
And you're shooting at the Man on Fire, who's on like a unicorn.
Yeah.
And so, so bear with me here. Like, do you remember the part where you're getting chased by a helicopter and then a giant whale,
a flaming whale, just apparates out of nowhere and just eats the helicopter.
Yeah,
and
then it disappears, right?
It disappears, and we never see it again.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the significance of that was. Did the Man on Fire save you? Because I have to imagine that he is the one who like drudged that up. Because he's also
maybe.
because he's riding the flaming unicorn too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like why would that whale exist without him? So
I can't even tell if it was a real whale or. I mean, so there's a lot of like Moby Dick stuff in this game, so it's like it's all imagery, but it's just odd because everything else kind of has a reason in this game. Stylistic choice. I neglected to say that Ishmael disappears before this. He just kind of dives out of the way at one point, and they leave it at that. So so that this is kind of the end of the tutorial. You're gonna get your bearings again, and you now are pretty much tasked with finding Miller, who has been kidnapped in Afghanistan. So that's kind of where the setting shifts. And I thought like the cutscene building up to this was really fucking good. Like it's one of like the let's go moments. I love those moments in games where if they can like suck you in, like you're gonna do this. Like
here we go.
You start out as a weak little man. And now you're getting your fucking robot hand and you're ready to go. And I thought it was so cool that I mean, this was kind of the beginning of the game where like the honeymoon phase was sort of setting in. I'm like, I thought like this, I like the Afghanistan map a lot. Would you like to say anything about it? Like as a, this is the first time kind of in Metal Gear where you're kind of like let off the leash.
Yeah, this is the first time Metal Gear takes a non-linear approach. Like you're given full reign of the entire control scheme right out of the gate, and then they don't really hold your hand too much either, which I thought was nice. Like they sort of left it to you to, I don't know, to just through trial and error to experiment with all the different ways you could approach different tasks.
I think we said it earlier where I think that Metal Gear Solid 5, I think the strength of the game is how it plays, and your playground that you can do stuff in. We have problems with like everything else that isn't that. Well, I mean, in terms of the Afghanistan map, I just think this game fits this format. Where like
doesn't feel forced.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there's so many different ways you can approach each mission. Like that's why like as barren as the story is, I think the missions do have like a fair amount of replay value. Where there's so many different angles you can take. You can go in guns blazing, which you could do in the previous games too. But given the sort of the openness of the
nature
map,
of the game,
you can approach sort of each fortress from like a different angle.
You feel less guilty about being caught.
Right.
Yeah, you can improvise and
there's a lot of freedom.
There is kind of when you get caught or a guard sees you and the exclamation point thing happens, there's a time freeze where you can kind of like try to take them out with a weapon, like a tranq gun or like a rifle or whatever. And it was kind of like I felt like that added a lot of, the Metal Gears have always been really clunky, and it's just like such a nice like saving throw.
I mean, no, this game plays like a modern game.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in universe too, because like it's not that hard to believe that Big Boss would have such cat-like reflexes that time would, from his perspective, slow down enough for him
like the most important thing.
I mean, if there's a flaming whale, I'm sure he can see through time for a second or two.
Yeah, sure.
He's Big Boss. Like, come on.
And you can like take drugs later that like induce it, like on a whim and stuff too. And so so you can ride a horse around in this part, which I thought was like, it was so interesting how natural that was. And you get kind of it's called the buddies in this game, where you can bring certain ones in, and this is one of them. And so there's not a lot compared to the other ones, but you can make it like take a dump on the road, and it like if cars drive through it, they'll like skid and crash.
Like there's a lot of shitting in these games.
There's shitting, but it's like it's a very there's a couple different ways to skin the cat here. I guess was what we're saying. So you wind up having to track Miller down through a couple of different leads, and you are encountering the skulls here, which is they kind of look like the Borg from Star Trek.
Sure,
I guess, and they're kind of, instead of a boss unit in this game, you just keep running into them, I guess. And they're kind of a mixed bag for me.
I think visually it's cool where like it gets kind of dark and sandstormy, and I mean, I actually had like, there's one moment I always reminisce on a Metal Gear Solid 5. I think it was natural. It was not scripted at all.
Yeah.
Where I think it's early on in the game when these units come after you.
Yeah.
I remember I was under a ton of fire. I was getting my ass kicked. And I called in my horse on the radio, and then I got on him, and I just jumped over fences. And I'm like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It was a very natural thing. It just kind of happened in the gameplay.
Yeah.
I just thought their introduction was a little goofy. When,
Yeah.
like they, the four of them, I think, just sort of slowly walk into frame, and then there's this moment where they all like glitch out, and it appears as though like the game just hit the fast forward button.
Yeah.
Like they start twitching really
it's
fast.
a very kind of anime choice.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't too fond of that, but I think as a force, they're intimidating.
They're an intimidating gameplay element at least.
I really like that in the first encounter, it kind of, unless you really know what you're doing, which I did twice, you have to get caught by them. And what it is like they kind of they come on either side of a bridge, and you just kind of have to game them into going. You know, so if you're like a really experienced stealthy guy like I am, you can circumvent them there. And I don't know. I like and I dislike them, I guess is what I'm saying. So then they introduce you to the new mother base. You're taken back there. You, Miller, and Ocelot are going to rebuild the army, and I figured this would be a good kind of segue into all the micromanaging in this game. So, how do you guys feel about it? Let's talk about it.
I mean, go ahead.
I hardly did any of it, and like
oh really?
I got through the game just fine. Like basically the extent of what I did was I just fault and extracted whoever I found, but I didn't like I never went into assigning each soldier to like specific tasks. I just sort of because there's also this element where you're able to scan the enemies that you tranquilize.
Yeah.
And you can see like they're like different specs. Like they have like they're like a B at this thing or like a D at that. And eventually it gets to a point where like everybody is an A at everything or like even an S.
At like bare minimum.
Exactly, right. So you extract them. And at that point it's like, well, no matter what the game assigns them to, like they're going to do fine. If they're good at everything, I don't have to worry about
the Fulton
where
extraction is also like really funny too.
We should talk about that because that was in Peace Walker, a much campier game, and it feels so funny here.
But what I think is so funny is, but nobody played Peace Walker.
Yeah.
So everyone thought the Fulton thing was, it's so endearing and like cute and funny.
Right.
But I don't think anybody knew anybody, as in a low amount of the fan base knew it was in another game.
Right.
I mean,
you're attaching a balloon to a man and he's getting sucked into it's very kind of They talk a lot about outer heaven in these games, and it's almost a rapturous experience where you're abducting these men, and it's like it's so fucking bizarre because like, okay, so let's think about it. You're abducting soldiers from like the Soviet Union or whatever, and taking them back to your base, and then what happens? You know what I mean?
Right.
So your life is over. You can either die or join us.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen something.
I like to because I wonder like the logistics of how the Fulton extraction system works. So how far up does the balloon go?
It goes,
and
like,
then
through
and what
the
happens
atmosphere.
then? Yeah, exactly. And then so did they just float there until like a plane comes and
I
gets
assumed
them?
it was like the Dark Knight thing where they pick them up with the plane and
that's what I thought. But like, geez, like to just to think that technology like that could ever exist back then is so preposterous.
Yeah,
but
I
whatever,
agree.
man. It's Metal Gear Solid. I'm willing to look the other way.
Sure.
And it's even funnier to consider that a game that took place 10 years prior still had this,
Right.
and the iDroid,
Right.
Oh yeah,
and the red robot arm.
Right.
yeah. That's
Like,
true.
But like whatever.
We're giving this game a lot of rope.
I just want to clarify that I did like that it does something if you put time into it. I mean, you got through fine, but I do like that. So like there's a couple different units. There's the combat unit where you can deploy guys to like get resources for you or whatever. There is the R&D unit, which you can like purchase new guns and equipment and stuff like that. Support, you get like fire support, you know, like you can call in airstrikes. There's translators, which is really cool. Like you don't understand what people are saying until you abduct specific like translators who speak a certain language, which plays into the game a lot more later. You have the base development, which is just kind of your materials process. Like you find like raw material. It's a very kind of RPG sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where you're putting all these resources into unlocking equipment and shit like that. The medical unit treats staff injuries and also helps you develop gear. And the security unit, which is you defend your forward operating bases, which is like kind of like the online component.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And did you guys mess around with that at all?
No, I didn't play any online at all.
I played a few, and I did think it was cool because you're essentially, they're implying that everyone is making a mother base like all around the world, so you're infiltrating other players' bases,
other mercenary groups.
Yeah, and I did have fun with it, but it just like it gets old because it's all like the same maps, you know, like it's all that like industrial mother base stuff. So just to clarify, mother base is like this huge like oil rig in the ocean of South Africa, and that's where you're kind of you expand, you get more platforms to drive around and shit over the course of the game. You can also Fulton extract animals, which I did, and it's very cute. And I didn't do it this time, but you have like a whole like zoo platform, and your soldiers will thank you for saving those animals.
It's
even though it's not completely clear that they were ever in danger in the first place.
Yeah,
I thought maybe like they're getting them out of like a war zone. Maybe that's like the generous take.
Yeah.
But it's I would like to talk about that. I wish Mother Base had more like going on.
Yeah, sure. It feels a little dead.
It feels pretty dead. It's just really funny that you can only like so. You go around saying hello to your men, but you can't really do anything. You're just standing in front of them will like raise morale, like they'll salute you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like let's develop something, boss. Like thanks, boss. But the only way you can interact with them is kicking their asses.
Yeah.
Because like some of them will ask for a sparring match, like let's have a mock battle.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's just really funny because you can like just beat the shit out of somebody who wasn't asking for it.
Yeah.
And then kick them awake.
In the game, you can also pick them up and throw them into the water, and the game ends if you do that. Did you ever try that?
Yeah. A Miller will yell at you or something.
Yeah.
There's actually a really funny part of Mother Base. Did you guys ever get this? You can shower at Mother Base.
Yeah.
In fact, you kind of have to because if you go too long not doing it, your crewmen will start to like
morale sinks.
Yeah, and exactly. They'll start to observe how bad you smell and comment on it.
I think Ocelot like throws a bucket of water.
Yeah, so it's really funny where if you take a shower, it actually increases your maximum health and and some of your defensive stats, which are not on screen, and which is cute.
There is also like a hidden morality system in this game where like if you do a number of cruel acts, like the horn on your head will exponentially grow, and at a certain point you won't be able to like wash the blood off you, which I thought was pretty cool. And there's also kind of I did want to mention a really cool detail I noticed was that there's like a belt that hangs off of you that's supposed to look like a tail. I thought that was cool. But yeah, so there's not a lot to do at Mother Base. I thought maybe you'd have like NPCs like doing quests for Ocelot or
but not really.
No, you don't really see them, which is unfortunate. What is cool is that something else I didn't mention about your soldiers is that they can intercept enemy equipment, because so if you headshot a lot of enemies in the battlefield or whatever, they start using helmets, etc. You know, and if you're sneaking around at night a lot, they'll wear night vision goggles.
Yeah, so the game will react to how well you're playing.
Yeah. And you can essentially counter by sending your dudes to intercept their gear or whatever, which I thought was great. Any kind of highlights in terms of the equipment in this one?
Well, I think what's most impressive to me is how people on the internet are so much more creative than me.
Right.
Like when they play this game, where it's unbelievable, whether it's like the boxes or the what are they called? Like the fake like snake the
inflatable snakes.
Yeah, the inflatable snakes.
Yeah.
People do some incredible stuff online that I just never did. I was so focused on crawling and like using silent weapons, but people, I think I'm going to tip my hat to the internet, who I think were better at playing this game than me.
I love, like, you know, like putting a bunch of C4 on a Jeep and then like sending it into an enemy base. And you know, what I did this time was you kind of you distract the enemies with these balloons, and I just like put C4 like underneath them, like as soon as they approach them. It's pretty. I mean, like I felt the least bad about killing people in this game.
I think this game. I think our friend Nick, not my brother Nick. I think what he would say about this is it's a game where you get cool stuff and you can actually use it.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. The Phantom cigar is it's a vape, right?
Yeah, it's a vape. Yep.
And,
which you use to
pass
speed
the
up time.
Yep.
I thought it was cool. There's like a flame in like the iDroid. It's like a holographic flame that lights
Yeah.
it. It's pretty sick. The cardboard box gets a little bit more utility in this one. You can like surf down like sand dunes and stuff in it.
And then there's one with like a picture of like a woman in a bikini on it, which you can use to distract the soldiers.
And then you pop out and shoot.
Yeah, it's preposterous to believe that like anybody would be distracted that long before noticing it's just an image
in a war
zone. Why is this here? There's no way this is like a trap, right? I think they stand there staring at it until like you pop out and like, surprise them.
So on that forum, I just didn't want to mention also the robot arm is awesome, and it's ridiculous because you can fly it around. It's like a portable missile to like knock people out or blow them up or whatever. Just an absurd piece of equipment. The helicopter is also pretty prominent in this one with picking you up and shit and offering fire support and whatnot. But I was disappointed that you can't like ride it from checkpoint to checkpoint or base to base. I would have thought because there you have like the minigun on it, and it's like it's just let me rip, you know, I would have liked to have seen
it's
that.
More the helicopter's more or less a menu when you go in it.
Yes, for sure. Because I mean it had potential as like kind of like a set piece kind of figure, and you pretty much primarily, if you want to fast travel on the map, once you're there, you have to use the box kind of like MGS1. But we should note that like all these kind of, they call them sorties, like where you go out on a mission, whether it's a side mission or main mission, it costs resources. So you have to like kind of accumulate and think about that a little bit as you're,
it costs you resources to do stuff to get more.
And you earn from it, but it's kind of, you got to manage yourself well. So it kind of in the beginning of the game, they give you pretty much free reign to do all these kind of mini missions. There is you can sort of sabotage enemy equipment and stuff. I did want to mention there's wall climbing in this game, but it is very few and far between,
very limited, and
they kind of don't tell you, they don't make it super clear where the opportunities are. I feel like it could have been
better utilized.
I feel like there was a lot of like roadblocks in this game where I'm like, I wish I could just fucking like crawl up this. You know, maybe it needs a grappling hook. So there's that. You meet the dog here, which is another buddy.
Diamond Dog,
and he's like just a puppy, and like gradually he'll grow and join you on missions and stuff.
Coincidentally, his right eye has been gouged out.
Just
like you.
He gets a little eye patch.
It's adorable.
It's very cute.
I think he was my favorite this time because he can automatically sniff out where the enemies are for you and just mark them for you. Pretty rad. He can like kill people and stuff.
You can stick him on enemies, and he like pulls a little knife out of like a holster. He slits their throats.
It does like a backflip.
It's ridiculous, but it's both like awesome and adorable at the same time.
So I wanted to get into sort of the first story mission here, which
so we've talked a lot about gameplay. We should definitely get into the story. I mean, there's so much gameplay in this, and it's all so fun. We could talk about it forever.
I mean, I think we've pretty much touched on all the fundamentals here, but I want to talk about sort of once you're into the story, the first kind of interesting set piece is when you go into that like Indiana Jones kind of temple, and you're looking for that rocket launcher. So it's the deal is that it's like a weapon that the CIA has given the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets, and it's the big thing is that it can lock onto enemy helicopters. And so you journey, and it's a really fucking hard mission where you have to, if you don't want to get caught, you have to sneak through this temple and find it. And I liked, because you kind of don't get that sort of larger than life feel from Metal Gear locations, and I thought it was a nice change of pace. So you wind up being ambushed by the skulls there, and you can use it on them because it'll lock onto their heat signatures or whatever. So this is also where you meet Skullface for the first time.
Oh boy.
And you're grabbed by a giant hand and you're held upside down, and I thought it was a pretty cool scene.
I don't like his one-liners, but I thought it was like a fairly decent entrance for him. Although it doesn't make sense to me why the giant hand just lets him go. Because Skullface
could just fucking squeezed him.
Exactly, just kill him right then and there. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I'm sure our paths will cross eventually if you get out of here alive. It's like, so if your plan is for him to die, just you have him. Like,
Yeah.
stop monologuing
Yeah.
and just kill him. And like, why would you let him go? You have him on a silver platter.
So it's I think something that I struggle with in this game is that there's a much more serious tone, but you still have moments like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like holding it back. I did like kind of that encounter though. So shortly thereafter, you have a boss fight with Quiet.
This was pretty cool.
So I want to just mention that this is the woman who attacked you in the hospital, but now she's a sniper. And a lot of kind of behind the scenes controversy about this character. So why don't we get into it?
Okay, the controversy or the boss fight?
Either or.
Okay. So I have a cool moment about this boss fight, but let's talk about the bad stuff first.
Sure.
So Kojima had some really I'm just gonna say it. He said some pretty offensive and stupid shit.
Yeah.
Where she is not wearing a lot of clothes in this game.
Yeah.
And
like stockings and a bikini, and that's pretty
it's
much
not good. And what this is a quote from him where he modeled her like this because he wanted to see the cosplays,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Ooh.
And he
Ouch!
and
I'm like, oh my god.
so basically, and he said something like, what? I just wanted her to look sexy, and everyone's like, "What the fuck are you talking about,
Dude,
man?"
oh
but
my
he's like,
God.
"Okay, I misspoke," and I get what he means, but it's still like pretty egregious.
It's terrible.
so like the whole thing is basically it's her thing is that she's like a perfect sniper, right?
Yep.
So she doesn't need to breathe because she breathes through her skin, so she doesn't move.
Which that's such a cop out.
It
Yeah.
is.
Like,
But so basically, so what you find out is that she shares kind of the same thing as the End.
Yep.
And he kind of bro through the like he wear fuck. Imagine he was naked.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jesus.
man, that'd
Oh
be
my
crazy.
oh
god.
Jesus.
But so she can one eye can look through the scope and the other one can spot, which
Yep.
I thought was really cool. So she doesn't need a spotter. So I think the concept of the character is cool. It's just very like come on,
You
man.
can't take it seriously because of like how he chose to sexualize her in this
Yeah.
game. But I mean Kojima. Something I do want to bring up. I feel like my gameplay experience in this game, I just caught a lot of really good natural moments.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if you have to do this. So when I encountered the Quiet boss fight, I was actually riding my horse galloping and she picked me off.
Yeah.
Like she just shot me off the horse.
Yeah.
And I said, holy fuck, what is happening?
Yeah, yeah.
So like you kind of run into it's not really a boss arena. You're just kind of, running free or riding your horse, and you just get hit
It's
out
like
of
a bunch
nowhere.
of ruins.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Very cool. But I thought it was a lot like easier than the other sniper fights.
Yeah.
But it was a cool moment nonetheless because you're kind of in open Metal Gear mode and this is a boss fight.
Yeah.
Like she has a health bar.
Oh, dude,
and
it made me
everything.
jump. I said, oh,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's very loud, very well produced. But you kind of sneak up on her, and it's so fascinating to me that they kind of recreate like the boss thing where you
Yeah.
can like shoot her,
Mhm.
and if you shoot her, she's just dead.
Yep.
And then if you don't, then she becomes like a major character in the game.
Mhm.
I mean, like I could have done with like more of those.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know what I mean? Like where the story like arcs in certain ways. So you spare her life. Let's assume.
Yep.
And you move on, and pretty much she saves your ass from a jet that comes after you. Really cool scene. And there's just kind of a contentious relationship where she's being held prisoner on Mother Base.
Mhm.
And, like the men don't like her and they're leaving like threatening messages outside her cell over the course of the game and stuff.
Mhm.
And, but she likes you for sparing her life, presumably. So
Mhm.
eventually she becomes a buddy and joins you on missions and stuff. I like her. I mean, because I didn't really get how to use her at first. You have to kind of go into your map and assign like a sniping spot for her, and I didn't realize that it doesn't really teach you
Mhm.
to do that. But once I did, I liked her. But something that really bothered the fuck out of me is that whenever she finds a new spot, she hums her fucking theme song.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
If her whole like like she doesn't breathe, and that's part of why she's so stealthy.
Right.
And like, but like, why would you give away your position by making noise?
Yeah.
To the ear of like potentially like anybody who might be within earshot of you.
Completely, yeah.
And on top of that, her theme song sucks.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a very bad take. It's kind of like, come on, just try and hum like the music, and then they just did it. They just threw it in there. It really like deterred me from using her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the important thing to know about that character too, for the sake of the story, she doesn't talk.
Right.
She's called quiet because she doesn't talk.
So
But
I
she-
like to
that comes
also,
up later.
Before we get too far off the subject, there are 2 female characters in this game. One of them doesn't speak, and the other one's a ghost.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's just kind of like odd when he has such a great history of female characters, of
Yeah.
like, you know, very interesting ones. And it's just a little disappointing in that respect. You also recover Emmerich at this part of the game. Very cool mission where you infiltrate the Soviet base camp. And so basically Emmerich is Otacon's father. And I mean, I was admittedly really weirded out by this when I first played, because I thought it was lame. There is kind of like some relief though, where you think about how Otacon talked about how his father was in weapons design and stuff, and it's like, so there's some
It makes
precedent.
enough sense.
Yeah, but you get the robot here. That's your kind of last buddy, and you can kind of upgrade it over the course. I didn't use it much this time.
I didn't either.
But you can like dick around with the AI. Did you do that?
The
at all?
D-Walker?
Yeah.
It was a cool like utility to use every now and again. Although because I have more of a connection to D-Dog or
course.
Quiet, of course. So although it's basically what D-Walker is good for, because it can ski also on land. So if you want to get from like point A to point B really fast, it's good for that. But I don't know. Beyond that, it's because you could only have one buddy on the field with you. Like if you're using D-Walker, you can't have the dog or Quiet.
Sure.
So like overall, it's not really worth it to take on missions with you.
So basically, in the reason of bringing them up, I was pretty like disappointed by the buddy palette in this game.
Okay.
I would have, enjoyed like Ocelot coming along with you, or like Frank Yeager or something, or So I actually forgot to mention that they in a cassette tape. So a lot of the storytelling in this game is done through cassette tapes.
Audio logs, essentially.
Because the story missions are pretty few and far between. You wind up learning a lot through the audio logs. They mentioned that Chico died on the chopper in Ground Zeroes.
Yeah.
And I was like so fucking... I swore that they were going to like reverse it later. Like, he's actually alive. Turns out he was supposed to be one of the buddies. And he's really fucked up from the events of Ground Zeroes. And he's kind of just like this psycho who comes along with you. It looked really cool, but I was pretty disappointed considering Metal Gear has such an expansive, like, interesting character palette. So that mission is pretty cool, but I hate how they reveal the Metal Gear in this game.
Okay.
So essentially, it looks a lot like Metal Gear Rex from the first one, and eventually it stands up. And so it's just like a huge, like, kind of Gundam, like, just huge mech thing. And it's really fun in gameplay, but I feel like they tipped their hand way too early.
And not to mention that Skullface says, "Today is the day that weapons learn to walk upright," where Metal Gear Zeke existed in the previous game 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but perhaps Skullface didn't know about that.
But he's talking about, so I did see kind of the point of Metal Gears in this game where it gets stuck in that, like, crevice, and then it stands up and it can bypass it. So I get like why this was such a big deal, because it's like the big thing is that they can't get it to walk upright, and they wind up using fucking Psycho Mantis to get it done. So like there's like a miniature kind of boss fight where you have to run away from it. And if you get caught by it, and when you're doing that reflex slow motion mode, you see little Psycho Mantis like controlling it. And I just feel like they should have saved the reveal for later. That's what it was. So at this point, you move on to the other map, which is Africa. Do you guys like Afghanistan or Africa better?
Probably Afghanistan.
Probably Afghanistan.
Same.
Yeah.
And can you kind of put into words why that is?
Not really.
Not really. I don't know.
I thought about it.
Yeah.
I think the terrain is a lot more varied in Afghanistan. Africa is very flat.
Yeah.
I like the sandstorms better in Afghanistan than like the rainstorms in Africa.
I think that the vistas are more beautiful too.
Yeah.
When you get like that wide shot at the when Ocelot in the first mission where he like sends you off on your own, there's that big wide shot of the open terrain, and it looks gorgeous. I don't think we get anything like that in Africa.
No, I wouldn't say so. There is a pretty cool like opening set piece where you blow up like an oil facility. You remember that one? That was pretty tough. Pretty tough to see.
One of the harder missions.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting though that I did want to mention that this game has an episodic structure. And I don't like it at all. So I do like the concept of like gearing up and going out on your missions and stuff like that. But I feel like the story missions maybe should have played by different rules. Something that I think a lot of people dislike is how it pretty much spoils who and what is going to be in the mission.
There's a credit sequence at the beginning of every one where Hideo Kojima throws his name. At the
Directed
beginning. I know every time it's like, we know made the
but
game.
it says like guest star in the Skull's Parasite unit,
like it's like, oh, they're gonna be in it.
Great. I think so. I was actually surprised by one of these side missions in Africa where I forgot that they were a part because they kind of throw them at you, and I wasn't paying attention to the credits, and it really surprised me. I was like, holy shit, I didn't plan for this. So it's basic, and it also the credits also take place after you get your loadout ready. So it's not of use to anything. Like, so it's not even like, oh, this is what I'm going to be facing. I can prepare, whatever. So that I don't like about this game.
Featured mech, Sahelanthropus.
It's like, oh, okay.
Cool.
Sahelanthropus is not an actor. Like, you know, credits don't work this way. Okay. It's like, I don't know. Have any of you watched a movie where the end credit scroll was just naming characters?
Yeah.
And not who played them?
No.
Exactly.
No, definitely not.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I think this is also playing this and another game we're going to be talking about in the near future. I think I realized that I can't be trusted in an open world game to set the pace for myself.
Okay.
Because I'm always like dicking around, like even because I only played the main missions. It kind of like the pace, the ebb and flow of the story just didn't work for me. And I feel like the episodic structure is a big part of that. Like it's very broken up, and the way they introduce it's like one every 6 missions is important.
Yeah, well, it's like, that's a problem with open world games, especially open world games of that time.
Yeah.
Where so I guess the story is not pressing at all because I can just go run around and do whatever.
Sure.
Right. There's no sense of urgency if you can just do whatever you want, and there's no time limit.
Sometimes you get like interrupted for something, but most of the time you can just do whatever you want.
You know what I'm gonna do? For 30 seconds, I'm gonna name drop a game that I think did this a little better. Was Dead Rising, first one, where it is an open world game. Yes, you can dick around in the mall, but every story mission happens at a certain time. And if you're not there, it's game over. So you have to make sure you're there.
So, I like that.
Yeah, where it's like, yeah, you can mess around, but remember, you got to be here at a certain time. Anyway,
I like that, yeah.
Where with Metal Gear, it seems like if there's a nuclear conflict and Sahelanthropus and all this crazy shit, but it doesn't matter, it feels weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
I agree.
Yep.
And it's so funny because they have done away with the codec pretty much in this game, which was the time waster.
Sure.
But it's still kind of, you're wasting your own time in this one too. So I did want to point out this story beat that I thought was great this time, was the Devil's House mission.
Okay.
Where you're in the jungle in Africa and it starts getting really misty. And it's kind of like it's like pretty much, besides the hospital, the only like car sequence. And I thought it was really great this time around. You're kind of exploring this tent, which is like a lab. And you're pretty much you're introduced to it by you're hearing like talk shows in different languages. And you walk in and there are like these wires connecting to people's throats. And you have no idea what to make of it. And it's just like they have like growths on their chests and stuff. And it's a really like disorienting, strange sequence. Skullface shows up and shoots somebody in the face. Do you remember this?
All I remember from that scene was him going, "You." He points at Big Boss and just says that, and then he sicks the Man on Fire and Psycho Mantis at you.
Right.
And then there's this really strange moment where you're being strangled by the Man on Fire, and then for some reason, Psycho Mantis freezes him and allows you to escape. I never understood that.
Yeah, and it's gonna really kill me when we finally get to their explanation, but it's so fucking stupid that water like stops him.
Yeah.
And like I did think that, you know, I did want to bring up that this mission, to me, I played it because there's the day and night cycle, and I think it's kind of a limitation of that, where some scenes just look better at certain times of day. And this was one of them. I thought it looked great at night because it's like the burning, you know, and everything is super illuminated and it looks awesome. But yeah, what happened to me the first time is that it's just started raining happenstance, and like, you know, he was vanquished. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it like doesn't have to happen. Like, you know, you can defeat him any number of ways. What was stupid though is that there's a water pistol and it does like nothing against him.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Yeah, so basically the boss fight is you have to lure him to sources of water.
Yeah.
Like, it's so stupid.
Very, very Zelda-y.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
I still can't get past that moment where he just lets you go for no reason.
There's a lot.
It happens a lot in the
so
game.
it just seems very contrived, and there's no explanation for why Psycho Mantis sort of just gave you that freebie in that moment.
Yeah, so that sucked. But I did like the Eli boss fight. So you're kind of there's a lot of child soldiers in Africa. You rescue some at one point, and you find out that someone called Eli is their leader. And pretty much if you have a working brain cell, you can figure out that it's Liquid from later in the series. And I just thought the execution of this character was terrific. He's kind of in a like hollowed out boat, sitting on a plastic chair in a kind of like a very throne-like way. And you have to kind of like sneak past it's a very kind of, I don't know, like they're shooting like bows and arrows at you and shit. And it's just a different kind of pace.
You can't kill them
game.
No, the game will stop. Boss, you killed a child.
Great job.
Amazing. Mission complete.
So you have kind of a weird little boss fight with him, which feels almost like Mario-like, where he's like throwing shit at you and you have to like CQC him into submission, and you wind up taking him back to Mother Base. So I really liked that you're kind of getting a little bit more in your face lore. But there's really a lot of his story just unfolds off camera. And I didn't like that. And it's like he's such an important character later on. And at a certain point, they take it because he thinks, you know, because of everybody knows about that they're his clones. And he keeps calling you his father.
Yes. Yep.
And at a certain point, they do a DNA test and it's revealed that you're not. And I was like, what? Okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
You started to get a little bit of the plot unfolding here.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, I already knew why.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
The twist is later.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting into the end of we'll call it Act 1, which is the majority of the game. So I really love this mission where you have to rescue a code talker.
Yep.
Where you're walking through the jungle and there's these female skulls that are snipers show up and they fucking like waste you. They're like,
this part was so hard. Like you had to be stealthy.
So you had to be super stealthy, and Quiet was like incapacitated when I brought her along this time. You'd think she would be the one, but they had to like helicopter her out or whatever.
Yeah. Because basically, if you make one wrong move here, like you're done. And there's that mist, the fog, so you can't even really see clearly
you
yourself.
have to use a couple different tricks and gear to outsmart them. But you wind up, it's a really cool location where you find him in that mansion in the jungle. I thought it was a really cool setting where you're just kind of like sneaking around. It's a very traditional Metal Gear experience, but it's still kind of an interesting locale. And I really liked this character this time. I think I really like appreciated him more. But we should bring up very briefly that his voice sounds exactly like Master Tang from Kung Pao.
Yeah.
So it's very hard.
Very distracting. It's even more like pronounced in the tapes that you don't need to listen to.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, but there's this ridiculous subplot where like he really loves hamburgers, and then Kaz like opens his own restaurant.
And Kaz helps him out, and they're trying to make the perfect hamburger.
Yep.
And it's a very like a staggered old man voice.
I can subsist without food, but I love hamburgers.
So
a lot of bad food subplots in these games.
Yeah.
The eggs and
I was actually more invested in the hamburgers than what was going on outside.
Yeah, pretty
of it,
much.
To be honest with you.
It was like it was something for me to like get invested in.
There was a beginning, a middle, and an end to that story.
Yes.
So at this point, I really,
which is more than you can say about the main story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to rescue him here. He pretty much, it's a really cool sequence where he gives you like his pipe, and he's a Native American geneticist, I think, or and he's studying parasitologist, I guess. And so basically, this is kind of you're revealing like what was going on in the tents. Is that really, really cool kind of sci-fi concept? Is that the parasites are being sort of in a Pavlovian way, they're fostering an affiliation with that language, with that particular language. So they are being they're being harvested as a biological weapon to attack and kill anyone who speaks that particular language. And it's communicated by talking. Couple years ahead of its time. But it's like it's a very, very scary concept.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this. I feel like Metal Gear does this a couple of times throughout the series where there's a disease or there's a sickness.
I saw it as like a progenitor to Fox die.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Where this is pretty cool. Where this parasite or this sickness, it attacks certain languages, is what Beppe was getting at. Like if you want to attack English speakers or French speakers, or it's that sort of idea, which is pretty scary, pretty unique.
It's pretty much, it's like a Black Ops plot, and it's just like. So I found that very cool, and it's just kind of muddled because Skullface also has an ulterior motive where he's going to give everyone nuclear weapons that only he can control. Yeah. And it's like another one of those Kojima hat on a hat moments where it's like, no, just make it the cool thing about the languages. Don't include this other bullshit that doesn't.
You had to have a Metal Gear in there, though.
Yeah.
With Sahelanthropus.
So I did like that you kind of the themes tie together a little bit more than I thought last time I played it, where you have again a lot of the subtext is sort of explained through the cassette tapes where they're talking about how when humanity learned to stand upright, that's when they developed language. So it's kind of like it's and the whole thing with Sahelanthropus, is that how you say it? Is that you that it's a missing kind of skull discovered that was like a missing link, and conveniently all the events of this game were forgotten in later entries. Right. So that's this kind of becomes like a plot point, is that this is kind of the missing piece that history forgot.
Because that's what I was going to say. Because I think the vocal cord parasites are cool in concept. It's just I'm a little unclear on the rules behind how they work. So here's what I know. So let's say you condition one strain of this parasite to only react to, let's say, German. And if any of us got infected with this parasite, it wouldn't matter because we don't speak German. So what would have to happen is you would have to start speaking German for that parasite to in order for that parasite to copulate or like reproduce, and by extension to infect others. But I think at one point because Code Talker himself is infected with the parasites, but it's somehow developed like a symbiotic relationship with them, or something like that. Kind
of glowing and going up his sleeve or something, and he like talks to them.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of I don't know how I feel about this, but they kind of do that. You know how they explained Vamp's powers as nanomachines? Yeah. It's hard to imagine him even being in the same series, but like they kind of do the same thing with the Cobra, saying it was all parasites. Like, the reason he liked bees was because of the bee parasites.
Yeah, and the skulls themselves also have the parasite as well. And I guess they were able to hone them in some way where they earn special powers. Again, it's really it's
too open ended.
in the grand scope of things, it's hard to.
I feel like they're too variable.
Yeah, and then here's what really bothers me about them. Considering what we know about pandemics nowadays, I mean, I know this is like a parasite, not a virus, but it's made pretty clear that this parasite is pretty communicable. Like everybody on Mother Base at one point gets infected with it. Presumably,
that is really cool. Actually,
presumably, Big Boss himself, Kaz, and Ocelot, they just don't get infected with the English strain. But given what we know, there's no way that at one point this wouldn't just break out and infect the whole world.
Yeah,
but these parasites don't exist in MGS 1, 2, or 4.
Well, what's really cool is that what happens is, you know how you're micromanaging your staff. Some of them get sick and you have to quarantine them, but the game doesn't make it clear which ones are infected. And what you wind up, like, you have to kind of look for the pattern is that all of them speak Kikongo, which is one of the African languages. And so you have to put them on like a quarantine platform, otherwise it'll spread. So, and you can't send your guys out on missions. You can't fire anybody. You can't like let them leave. I thought that was really cool that like the main plot for a second affects kind of like the day-to-day of your gameplay.
Yeah.
This is also one thing I never bothered to do, and I was still fine.
So anyway, you work to develop the cure with Code Talker, and you solve all that. But I thought it was interesting that like everyone is sterilized from this treatment, and they don't really like. What do you think that like? How does that tie into like the story of Metal Gear?
Well, because it's like it's not just Mother Base. It's like a not insignificant portion of that part of Africa was infected with that parasite as well. So again, there's no way that eventually it wouldn't spread.
Sure.
I mean, they make it pretty clear that they have a parasite for every language except English, which we'll get to. But again, like there's no way that this would not eventually affect the entire world and eventually turn us all into mutes.
I guess it depends,
every country.
Like, it depends on how the logistics of how it spreads. Like they do say that you have to be continually speaking a language with someone to transmit it. But anyway, I just thought it was like a really cool thing that they kind of just introduced last minute, and then it just disappears for a little bit once you get that cure or whatever. And this is kind of like the end game here, where you are. I did like the OKB-0 is the last kind of fortress that you have to infiltrate. It's kind of like a Ganon's Tower sort of situation. It's like a very tricky, like several stealth sections in a row, very tough. And that therein you meet Skullface again at the top of the helicopter thing, and he explains his grand plan to you.
Oh God.
And Derek, do you want to take us through this here?
Oh Jesus! So what I was going to do when we got to it was to recite the little monologue he gives before he dies.
We don't have the time, but talk about like the Jeep ride and that kind of thing. Like how he walks you down.
So this is something that a lot of people were shitting on when it happened. So he explains. By the way, Big Boss, like your character says nothing throughout any of this,
right?
But he's just monologuing at you about how he's it's revealed that he has a contained version of like a vial of the English strain of the parasite,
right,
which he's going to unleash on the whole world and turn every English speaking person into a mute, basically.
Well, the idea is that despite being like a comparatively a minority language in the world, like that's kind of like where, you know, the global north
it's still the
English.
Main one, right? So he wants to eradicate language from this earth, which for some reason makes him think like he thinks for some reason this will make the world a better place. I don't know. His reasoning for all this is very cryptic.
I liked he kind of describes his childhood a little bit where he his homeland was invaded by differing armies, and he kept getting whisked to different, like, you know, speaking different language and gaining different cultural values and stuff, which I thought was very interesting. But it is like the most absurd James Bond kind of situation ever. And you kind of like I think he was trying to tap into that again, because you get the theme song, Sins of the Father, playing in the background. They're not speaking,
right? Because once Skullface runs out of dialogue, they just play that song. And my theory for this is because like they just had too much road left at the end of the speech, and they had to fill it in with something.
He starts talking again at a certain point, and then you're kind of there.
Yeah.
And so therein the Sahelanthropus activates, and you have to fight it. What did you guys think of this boss fight?
The only thing that really bugged me about it was just how ludicrous it was to imagine that like this Metal Gear was more advanced than the ones in like the later points in the series, where like it had like a flaming whip
it's
or
like
something.
It's like a prototype that doesn't get to production. I guess.
but it's like more advanced than Rex. Like it's got like a flaming whip for some reason,
like a shield
and
or something.
It can stick like a sword into the ground, and then these these spikes will come out of it. It's ridiculous.
It's very Final Fantasy boss fight.
Yeah.
And it's but I did like this that if you upgrade Pequod's Pequod is the new pilot. If you upgrade his helicopter, he's a lot more used to you in that fight, because they will automatically call in supplies when you're running low on rockets or whatever. That is a pretty cool thing that you can call in, you know, extra ammo and shit like that. But they do it automatically. They call him in automatically, and he's more useful to you if you've like been paying attention and doing your homework a little bit. So you wind up like taking it down inevitably. And Skullface gets crushed under some rubble, and he has a very like because you know this character had been on my mind for years, like with all the trailers and stuff. Keeping him up, like the hype was huge for this game, and I'm like, man, what's this guy's deal? And he is like barely in the game.
Yep. And
he has this really grotesque death. I heard he was originally gonna have a boss fight.
Yeah,
they found like dialogue for it, but he just gets like grotesquely like smushed.
Oh my god, it's gross. But like, oh my god, that whole scene. So I think we should take a brief aside to talk about Cypher, which is a pretty important story element.
Yeah,
because again, his little monologue is so confusing at the end. It's very cryptic. I'll say it. I'll be quick enough with it, and then I'll challenge you both to break it down for me after I'm done.
Okay.
All right. So he goes. After his plan all goes to shit, right? Like he's standing there, and it really, you get the sense that he's like just like rationalizing, like, yeah, well, but you know, it's like, so he says, Cypher will rewrite the records, and I will vanish from human memory. But the thirst for revenge that I have planted will infest the system. No one can stop it now. Sahelanthropus will unleash that thirst unto the future. Major, referring to Zero, I'm burning up. So can either of you please explain to me what any of that means? Because I honestly don't know.
I understand the first. So basically, a big conceit of the game in the beginning is that Major Zero is in control of Cypher, which becomes the Patriots. They think he's responsible at first, but he's not. It's Skullface has gone rogue. So basically, Skullface is saying that Big Boss will be so mad that he won't be able to get, even when he kills Skullface, he's going to go after Zero next because he hates Zero too. That's what I got from it.
It's just so unclear. That makes a little more sense to me now. But here's the thing too, because the whole game, Miller and the Diamond Dogs, you still believe that XOF and Cypher are the same thing. So there's that whole thing where Skullface is explaining his plan to you, and he refers to Cypher in the third person. So you'd think at that point Miller would be like, wait a minute.
Let me tell you something. Yeah. You know where they explain that? A cassette.
I know. Anyway, they explain it like before that whole mission happens, where because Ocelot explains how at one point when Skullface and Zero had a falling out, XOF pretty much just took over Cypher itself. But again, even though it's explained that XOF is Cypher now, Skullface still refers to Cypher in the third person, as if it's something else.
I don't think we're ever gonna figure it out.
So basically, my point is, like, let's compare, right? So with MGS2 having a shitload going on, I understand the story. With this having far less going on, I am still confused.
Sure,
you know.
Good point. Mm-hmm. So I did like that you get another kind of boss moment with him here, and like it's the first one where you were like very willing to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
and it's so funny. And like if you don't do it, Miller will like steady your hand, and they do it, and they it's a really fucking gruesome death where he's getting like blown apart by his own shotgun.
Yep.
And they just kind of leave him like dying there, and Huey for some reason is there, and he winds up shooting him. And it's very like, so basically Huey is under suspicion of causing the mother base attack in the beginning. And so the whole time he is very kind of trying to prove his innocence. And it's like a very kind of transparent attempt to try and win them over. And it ends very, very in a very, very cool way where they bring the remnants of Sahelanthropus back to mother base. And it has this really like sort of cinematic shot everyone staring up at it and, you know, kind of pondering what the future is going to be. And they realize that you realize that Psycho Mantis is now on Mother Base with the English strain.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really kind of put a pin. This is the end of chapter 1. And so you're thinking like, wow, chapter 2 is going to be like even more incredible.
Uh-oh.
There's a trailer for it and everything. And it's like all this crazy stuff. So chapter 2 starts, right?
Oh boy.
Oh boy. I think this is where this podcast is going to take a turn too.
So chapter 2 starts, right? And all of a sudden, it's like, so the tone, they kind of hint that the tone is going to shift. Like there's all these posters start appearing on Mother Base that say Big Boss is watching you. And Miller gives this very kind of like authoritative speech about like not trusting anyone and, you know, watching like your comrades and make sure no one's going to betray you. And the implication is that this is like killing Skullface was not enough, and they're just going to keep going deeper and into the, you know, demonic hole. Like they're going to completely change and become like nutcases, right? So what happens in chapter 2, fellas?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Dude, I am so offended by like so much of like this chapter and even the following. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Like, where do you want to start?
Well, so what few story missions you do get in the beginning are very kind of bland side missions. You have to go get a cassette tape from Afghanistan that's stuck between some bricks, and it explains the man on fire. And it's like the most offensive like reveal that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So they reveal that Psycho Mantis and Man on Fire, they met in a hospital where they were being experimented on in Russia. And basically, I thought Psycho Mantis was way too fucking OP in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's controlling Metal Gear and he's doing all this crazy shit. And what they basically explain that he, in an empathic way, he's a vessel for whoever is the angriest around him. And they reflect this by little choices in his character. So at a certain point, he gets the horn, the Venom Snake horn. Certain points he gets Eli's armband, etc., etc. Really stupid, doesn't go anywhere. The Man on Fire is just Colonel Volgin. He doesn't say a word. You only see his face at the very end, where he's going to grab you, and then he's just like, oh shit, sorry. And then he
just falls backwards and dies, and that's it. Then he's just like a charred body at that point. I felt nothing.
This series
at that
had
reveal.
enough resurrections as it is, and it was just like, when I was seeing the trailers for this game, I was like, oh, this Skullface is like, it's probably going to be Volgin or something because he's really fucked up. He's all burned. And so someone was like, no, they would never do that. They'd never bring Volgin back in such a way. I wish they had done that, because why? Like, he doesn't talk. He doesn't operate like of his own agency at all. He's just like,
he was so mad at Big Boss for what he did to him in MGS3 that his whole body just caught fire and stayed that way.
I guess.
Like he spontaneously combusted but survived and just stayed on fire.
Yeah.
He was just so mad that he took that form.
Oh my God. So basically the big contention here is that there are repeat missions.
Oh my God. Can I get a platform for this?
Super hard mode, perfect stealth. Go ahead, Greg.
Here's the thing. So this is, I feel like I've been waiting like 6 years to talk about this.
Yeah.
So here's what you've got. You've got chapter 1 of Metal Gear Solid 5.
It
plays
good.
Awesome. It's pretty good. There's some stupid shit, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You get to chapter 2, and I believe it's right before mission 46. And so many players encountered this, and so did I, where you cannot get the main mission to continue the game, which is chapter 46, unless you either complete side missions, you wait and do nothing, or you have to complete recycled missions on a harder difficulty just to continue the fucking game.
Yeah.
You know what happened at this moment? When this, I had to replay, or I was under the impression that I had to replay recycled missions on a harder difficulty. And I said, am I just replaying the same missions? Like, is this game not done? Like, is this game being padded out? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so And so the internet told me that I am wrong, where you can do various things to unlock chapter 46, but all of them are fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like you either have to do nothing, do side missions, or do main missions again on a harder difficulty.
Right.
And this is where I got to the realization that I am not convinced that every reviewer who reviewed this game finished it.
Right.
Where if you got to this point, I said, I think this game sucks.
Right.
Like, I can't believe they're making... This game has been so engaging. I'm having a blast. And now I am just plodding through recycled content and no one said anything?
Right. If they were just optional mini games, that would be
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
But they're literally woven into like the
main mission list.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's insane. And you have to do at least a few of them.
Yes.
You can't just straight up skip them.
I didn't have to do it this time. What I wound up doing this time was you can rescue the guys who are on the last mother base. They're like shell shock victims. Yeah. And when you do that, you do a little side story where another really dumb thing where they imply that Paz is alive.
Yeah.
And it's a huge waste of time because they reveal at the end that it was just a hallucination.
Yeah.
This is where like I hated this game. Like I'm so angry about you. I think you and I talked about this in like 2015.
Yeah.
Where like this game goes from 75% amazing to like 25% it's fucking awful.
I was because I was the first time I was part of like the hype cycle.
Yes.
And it was a really disappointing moment. Because they really hype up chapter 2 as being
there's nothing in it.
Yeah,
very little.
This game is not finished.
Chapter 1 ends with Miller saying, "But Cypher is still out there." Nothing in chapter 2 is about that.
Nothing.
People were thinking that maybe chapter 1 is revenge and chapter 2 is race. They don't really kind of do a lot with race in chapter 2. It's very kind of it's almost like a post game in a way.
Yeah.
And
it feels bad. Feels like a waste of time.
The only thing that I really loved about it is the mission where the English strain gets unleashed on Mother Base, and you have to go over to the quarantine platform. Very, very cinematic, very scary. Another kind of horror mission.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically realize that the staff are infected, and if they get outside, like the birds will feast on them and carry it to the mainland.
So you have to kill your own guys.
Right. And then they are not in control of themselves. The parasite makes them want to be out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
So you wind up like there's no cure for it. You have to like wipe them out. And it's like a very kind of harrowing experience because like your little droid voice is going like staff member has died and your stats are going down.
Yeah.
And it's and what I found amazing about it was that they have different reactions to you doing this.
Yeah.
Like some of them accept it and some of them are like, there's one guy who's like, so you are here to kill us, and he starts shooting at you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh fuck.
But that part where you're in like that room and there's like I think there's like 3 or so soldiers that salute you and say, "We live and die by your word, boss." It was so sad.
I
felt that
Peace Walker music, and
one of the few times this game made me feel something.
It's brutal.
It's very emotional.
But like they should have just gone right to that.
Like they love you so much that they let you kill them.
Yeah. That's the scariest thing about this guy. Like they all really love and respect this guy who maybe has brain damage. It's like pretty fascinating. But no, I thought that was really effective. There's the whole funeral scene with like the iconic, spreading the ashes on his face and stuff. Very kind of, it's the part of the game where I started to question the tone a lot, where it's like you have all this goofy stuff going on and you have some of the most serious stuff I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like all the sexual violence and like the, it's like this mass cremation.
I am laughing at something that Derek set off Mike earlier.
Oh yeah,
because we should talk about that. Poops.
Well, yeah, there is that, but we should talk about that iconic trailer moment where Snake is giving his little monologue, where him and Miller are going back and forth about like we're not burying them at sea, so what then? And then Snake says, "We'll make diamonds from their ashes, take them into battle with us."
And
this never happens. Like
I don't know.
What?
They don't.
Like, that would have been cool if it was like a final like war and peace sort of battle where like you and the rest of the Diamond Dogs are like riding into battle with like those diamonds with you. With something.
You're wearing it on a necklace or something.
Snake says this and nothing comes of it.
They don't do it.
They just drop it after that.
So yeah, that is something that bothered me, is that I wish you had seen Diamond Dogs in action as like an army.
Yeah.
You kind of never do. This part of the game is very kind of choppy.
Yeah.
In that respect. So once this happens, you find out that Huey was responsible, or at least partially, for this outbreak, and they have a trial wherein they it is a deep pull from Peace Walker, where they bring out that AI pod, and you basically find out that he killed his wife by suffocating her in there. And I thought this character is so fascinating because, number one, he has Otacon's voice actor, so you're more likely to trust him. And the entire time you're kind of questioning, are we like mistreating him? But basically you find out he's been like pulling your leg the whole time. You know, like he's really a piece of shit. He may be right about you, where, you know, who knows about like the morality of Diamond Dogs and everything, but you find out that he is guilty of all the things that you've accused of him. And because of Kojima's attention to the canon, he can't die.
Yeah.
So he has to be exiled and sent.
They put him in a
away
little
at sea.
raft and they send him off.
They send him off.
Right. Yeah. Because I liked this part of the game, actually, because it's I can't say for sure if this was Kojima's intention, but like you said, him having Otacon's voice actor makes it more likely to trust him. So I thought they were sort of building up sort of towards like a bait and switch sort of thing, where eventually you would find out that Huey really was innocent and Kaz was just being an overzealous prick the whole time. and they'd have that sort of like Toy Story moment where they find out Woody's innocent and they're like, oh great, now we have guilt.
Right.
But in the end it turns out that they were right all along. Huey really was a piece of shit and did all of those things. He staged the attack on Mother Base in 1975. He really did kill his wife.
He helped Skullface develop the Metal Gear.
Yep. He put his own son Hal Otacon in the cockpit of a Metal Gear as a test subject. All this shit. And then there's this moment where they, like Kaz and the rest of the Diamond Dogs want him executed, and they ask the boss what he wants to do. And I thought this was pretty big of him. He says, "Prepare a life raft, food and water too. He's leaving." Kaz, you are right. He is not one of us. We are not responsible to judge an enemy. I'm like, oh, okay. It was a nice moment. Like, I thought that was very big of him to do.
But there's that weird moment where he walks in slow mo for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, a lot of unnecessary slow motion.
You think Boss is just going to come over and execute him, but he just goes and talks to him?
Yeah, but there are a lot of like 300 style unnecessary slow motion shots in this game.
They call it. Yeah. There's a pretty grim scene where they're going to torture him with the that rust thing, the metallic archaea, and they're gonna like put it on his like because he can't walk, so he has like the cybernetic legs, so they're gonna like let it like sizzle down to his bone. It's so fucked. But
and when they bend his bionic leg backwards, that was brutal.
That's tough. There's a lot of like kind of flirtation with like torture and going too far and stuff like that, but it just like you don't get that like payoff where it's like you finally embrace how fucked up everyone is.
Yeah. But you know, in the end, I did like the fact that they sort of subverted that trope because Huey turns out he was guilty. I did appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the only subplot that has a beginning, middle, and end, besides the hamburgers, of course. So you get into there's a final quiet mission here where she leaves Mother Base. And you have to I fucking quit this time because I couldn't do it. It was they throw like I don't know how many tanks at you in sequence because she gets kidnapped by the Soviets and you kill a bunch of their dudes and they just come after you with like everything they've got. And I'm just like, oh, it's such a poor fit for like, you know,
a quiet mission.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And, you know, like what is she going to do against the tank? You know what I mean? So that sucks, but I do like the way it ends, wherein you have they have to take cover after all that. Really annoying, but they take cover and hide from some soldiers behind a rock, and they have to be very quiet. And a snake comes out, and what winds up happening is it's going to bite Quiet, who's like very weak because it's a sandstorm, so she's not getting any sunlight or whatever. And so the snake is trying to like intercept it, and it winds up biting him. and it's basically because a Soviet shoots another snake. And so it's a very sort of, it encapsulates the main theme where the snake is getting revenge on the wrong guy, you know, essentially.
Yeah.
And what winds up happening is that Quiet has to finally speak and talk to Pequod to give him your location so she can save you from dying.
We should mention that it's revealed earlier on that she's carrying that missing vial of the English strain of the parasite, which is why she can't talk.
I mean, it's kind of like they kind of wrap it all together with, they call her Quiet because she doesn't speak, and she's not speaking because she's infected with the English strain.
She'll die and spread the infection to others if she does speak.
That's why she's.
So there's this moment where like Pequod is trying to find the two of you because, like, you know, Big Boss is dying. She's in love with Big Boss. She wants to save him, but because the sandstorm is so violent, Pequod can't like triangulate your location. So she ends up saying, "Okay," and then she has to verbally guide him to where they are. It's a very emotional scene. Like they play her main theme song.
One of the only like I guess good visual, because there's a lot of telling in this game, not a lot of showing. I thought that was something that we should mention, is that he definitely like took the criticism of the cutscenes to heart, and now he kind of just like he's like, well, fine, then you don't get any cutscenes. You know what I mean? Like there's very few comparatively.
It's the other extreme though. Oh my God.
But so basically, she is presumably dead at this point, and your last mission is to literally replay the hospital.
Yep. Pretty cool.
I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
That's so lame. They make you replay the entire thing.
It fucking sucks.
And okay, continue.
I thought that they were gonna put a little twist on it, but the end of this game is the supposed to be earth-shattering revelation that essentially the Ishmael from the beginning is the actual Big Boss, and you were the medic from Ground Zeroes and had your face surgically reconstructed to stand in his place to like take the heat off him.
Yep.
So you have a cutscene at the end where you see Ocelot talking to the real one. He's cooler than you'll ever be. He's wearing the leather jacket. He's on the motorcycle. And it's so you get a little cutscene afterwards where the character you've been playing is looking in the mirror and he's listening to Big Boss thanking you, essentially. And I just like, I didn't get what the tone of this was supposed to be. Like, is he angry about it? Is he content? Is he happy? And it's very much kind of a fourth wall thing with Kojima, where he's thanking you for helping build the legend of Big Boss.
Oh, sure.
And that's why a lot of like the cool moments in this game happen, you know, from your own hand. Like really cool moment early on when I was like charging down a tank on a horseback with a rocket launcher with Billy Idol playing, because it is in the 80s. There's a lot of 80s songs. So there's a lot like that. There's not a lot of super iconic set pieces, but there's a lot that you can do that makes you feel really cool. But so this is the end of the game for all intents and purposes, and I just can't believe how much felt missing.
And did you guys not like that you're not Big Boss the whole time? Did it just not work for you?
I
didn't hate it.
I think it's a really cool idea. And also very tragic when you think about it, because like that poor guy,
and that's why I didn't get what they were going for at the end.
Exactly, because like clearly he had a wife and kids, a life of his own. Probably spent years upon years earning his medical degree, and then out of nowhere, against his will, has his whole mind wiped and is just thrown into this life just so the real Big Boss could go.
I did think there was a lot of like so. I just think that they did. Number one, they didn't really do a lot with it. I mean,
exactly.
But
they could have done so much more with this concept.
The liquid thing not being your son in the beginning. There's a lot of really cool stuff where it's kind of he seems very disoriented and like everyone is trying to convince you that you're Big Boss.
So are they telling you that everyone knows you're not?
Most of
the people know, they're in on it.
They find out. Miller finds out in a cassette tape after the credits, but you're not sure when that happened. But it's presumed that Ocelot knows and Skullface.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of clues like people not necessarily recognize. Like, are you?
There's that moment where you go to rescue Huey, and there's that little like tube AI of the boss from Peace Walker.
Yeah.
And it says, Snake? No, it's not you.
Right.
Is it? It's very subtle, but but not it's not too obvious either.
Yeah.
Although again, I picked up on it immediately at the start of the
Well,
game
I
because
think
when Ishmael was voiced by Kiefer Sutherland and he's covered in bandages, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
And the medic in Ground Zero is being voiced by Kiefer Sutherland. And like all the trailers kind of tip their hand. I think that what they really should have done is made that as secretive as possible, like MGS2, where you could have a genuine reaction, because it's neither surprising nor subversive, and you kind of don't get a good straightforward story out of it either.
Yeah.
And what bothered me the most about that final mission is there's sorry, there's nothing that happens to make Venom Snake remember the intro of the game differently.
Probably like it's something that would have been in the story.
Yeah, it just nothing. He just wakes up in the hospital. And he just realizes it for some reason, but nothing.
You see, like the reflection that you made at the beginning of the game,
but nothing leans him toward that revelation. It just goes from the quiet mission to that with no.
They pretty much the only confirmed cut mission is where it's this ridiculous cliffhanger where Liquid Eli steals the Metal Gear and it's like flies away, and so it's like, how can you not like finish that? And initially there was going to be a whole like separate little map where you took it back from. You had a boss fight with him, and there's a cool part in the beginning where they talk about how you get colorblind if you get whacked on the head because of the brain damage, and it was actually going to pay off here where he accidentally shoots Liquid because his vision is messed up.
Sure.
But it like, and then afterward it's revealed that like Liquid was wearing a bulletproof vest, and it's just like, so you were going to do something cool and it just was going to lead to nothing too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so there's basically, I think a lot of this game represents the problems I have with the series as a whole, where it's flirting with a lot of really cool ideas, but the execution is frustratingly like so-so.
Sure.
If sometimes bad.
My headcanon for that cliffhanger is Psycho Mantis and Eli just took Sahelanthropus to Shadow Moses and it became Metal Gear Rex.
Yeah.
Man, might as well.
You know,
Might as
like,
well.
like what else? Like what else could you do with that?
And
that
we should
idea?
note that like that sequence ends because they put it on like a bonus disc or something. It ends with a shot of pre 9/11 New York and Liquid saying it's not over yet, implying that he did 9/11.
Oh,
my
man.
God.
So
Forgot about that.
it would have been a really bizarre end to the game, but I just want to clarify. It just feels like very blatantly not done.
Yeah. Jocking the game as a whole.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think
Because
like
we know it's not.
I think I really, yeah, but I mean, in the actual feeling of the game, I would have preferred a third world map.
Yeah.
Maybe make the other ones a little smaller so you can have kind of a beginning, middle, and an end.
Because this game kind of feels like chapter 1 is the whole game.
Yeah.
And then 2, there's a lot of nothing, but 1 or 2 incredibly important parts of the story, and 3 is a lot of nothing with 1 incredibly important part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, we should say, like, if our audience if doesn't know this, like, Hideo Kojima was removed from this project.
Yep.
Like, towards the end of the development cycle.
And I see a lot of like that in the plot of the game where
Sure.
it's like you're abducting people to come work for you.
Yeah.
You know, like he's kind of that's the whole plot. He's going rogue. But I feel like the way this game was represented was that like, oh, it's about how Big Boss goes bad. It's filling in the last gap. It's gonna.
Yeah.
This is how he became the villain.
Yes.
And you don't really. He's done a pretty awful thing in ruining this guy's life, but you don't kind of get the. I was expecting like a Breaking Bad descent into madness
Right.
kind of.
Yeah.
thing,
And also, you find out in the truth tapes in the end that the whole thing was Zero's idea, not even Big Boss's.
Don't even get me started.
Oh,
like
man.
I just want to wrap up my thoughts on the
Yeah.
Metal Gear series as a whole here.
Sure.
I think it would have been a great opportunity to kind of. They mentioned that Big Boss is working on Outer Heaven. You're just a distraction, which is the location of Metal Gear 1. And what I think they should have done was have you make Outer Heaven. Because what they wind up revealing, like, oh, the end of the first Metal Gear is actually your character from this game. He's the boss that you kill. And I just thought that you should have been developing that one. Big Boss is developing Zanzibar Land. That's his, that's what he's doing. So then the third one is an irradiated Russia, where Zanzibar Land is taking place. And this is like the Metal Gear Solid 3 area. You know what I mean? And so you kind of have a new stage hazard. That could have been the third map.
Right.
And that's where it would have been. It kind of been like a Return to Shadow Moses kind
Sure.
of thing. And so like then you kind of, that's how you figure out, you find the real Big Boss, and it's like, oh shit. And that's where the game would have ended. You could have had like DLC where they remade Metal Gear 1 and 2. There's so many just like frustrating missed
I know, because I feel like the reveal that you're not the real Big Boss didn't even have to be the end either. Like there could have been this moment where he came back and was like, oh, thanks for building Outer Heaven for me. Now get the fuck out of here. And like it's like because at that point all those men who once respected you just cast you aside instantly because they're like, oh, he's not even the real thing. Like fuck this guy.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and then the rest it's like a chapter 3 where like the rest of the game is you fending for yourself without like Miller and your support. Would have been really
You could
cool.
have done almost anything.
Yeah, and because
I just feel like ultimately it's such a shame that this once amazing series ended in such like lackluster fashion.
Well, I think like a huge problem with this game, I brought it up before. The whole thing takes place in chapter 1. In chapter 2, there's nothing besides some incredibly important plot points.
Yeah.
But you have to do a bunch of padded out content to get there.
Yeah.
Then there's a reveal. You're not the real Big Boss, but then it's over.
Yeah.
And it's like if they had done maybe what Derek had suggested, maybe you could have had a part 1, 2, and 3 that was significant to the entire plot. Because the way you have it right now, Metal Gear Solid 5 could just not exist.
Yeah.
You could argue that if Metal Gear Solid 5 did not exist, the Metal Gear lore could just
it would
be fine.
Nothing important to the story really happens. Like the whole thing about the vocal cord parasites, that's not relevant in 1, 2, or 4.
The whole thing about having Big Boss's double is to explain something from a bleep bloop game. Like you could have had anything be like, oh well, the rocket didn't really kill him or whatever. I wish that this series like sometimes takes its canon very seriously. Yeah. And sometimes it's just frustrating when it doesn't. Like they could have really like tied it all together. Like had like a Halo Reach moment almost.
Sure. I mean, what I was gonna say is like, so we've been talking about Metal Gear Solid for many hours at this point.
Yes, we have.
And so I think this episode has really turned into, we've discussed Metal Gear Solid 5, but I think it's important to talk about this is probably the end of Metal Gear Solid because Hideo Kojima was removed from the project. The end of the game sucks. And then they made a zombie game out of this game. Like in Konami.
Metal Gear survived.
Dude,
Jesus Christ.
I could just like go on forever.
Dude, I just want to ask, like, so what would you grade Metal Gear Solid 5 as it is?
Are we grading?
Yes.
Oh man, I don't even know.
I mean,
I can't grade something that doesn't exist.
Here's what I'm going to say.
It does exist.
I would like to say 2 things.
Yeah.
If I had my emotional grade, it's an F.
Okay.
Because Kojima was removed from the project, the game is not finished, and there's a bunch of padded out content. And that is like, to me, is the most egregious thing.
Yeah.
But if I were to like take it for what it is, I don't know, a B minus, a C plus.
I was gonna give it a 7.
Yeah, it's like a C. I mean, what's so hard
because
for me?
Because the gameplay is really excellent. There's so many interesting systems, so many cool ideas, but it just doesn't come together.
No, this is an incredibly hard game to grade because of what happened in real life surrounding the game.
Yeah, completely.
Our figurehead, our creative guy was obviously removed. The game is not done. The game is padded out with content that sucks. I want to give it an F. F is for fuck you, Konami. But I don't know what to give it. Like, I don't know.
Derek, what would you grade it?
One of the trailers for this game advertised it as the missing link between the 2 eras. But unfortunately, they play us like a damn fiddle.
Yeah.
So, because like, dude, what infuriated me the most about the story was the fact that Zero doesn't show up at all. All you get of him is the little truth tapes at the end where he has like, for some reason, these top secret conversations are being recorded on tape.
Hey man, Watergate.
And somehow fall into the hands of Venom Snake. I don't know, but that's a whole other thing. But
bottom line,
I thought, man, I don't know. Gameplay, absurdly good.
Yeah.
Which is what makes this game so frustrating just by its own sheer existence.
Sure.
Because you play Metal Gear Solid games for the story, really. Yeah. And there was really none of that in there.
And then you get like the opposite.
Yeah, right. Because it's like there's that whole there's that big like bombshell in 4 where you find out that Zero is like the cause of all the world's problems. And I thought, okay, cool. So that's what 5's gonna do. They're gonna really flesh this out. And nothing. We get nothing in MGS5.
It's just like, to put a pin on it, it not only does it not tell the story I wanted it to tell, it doesn't even finish its own story, and it doesn't tell it at all. So
I mean, Jesus Christ. So anyway,
final thoughts on the Metal Gear series as a whole.
Yeah.
I love so much about it. but there are so many frustrating things that just kind of came to a head in this final chapter.
Sure.
I feel like he will never return to it, and I feel like anyone who tries to do something with it will horribly fail.
Yeah, so we have been going on forever. I do want to make sure because this series is incredibly important to gaming history. I will take a minute to talk about the series as a whole. I played this series in a very strange order. I played this 1, 5, 2, 3, 4. So I got classic hokey Metal Gear Solid with a good story. Then I got incredible gameplay, dog shit story. Then I got the meat of the franchise.
Yep.
And what I said last time about Metal Gear Solid 4 was I am incredibly impressed that Metal Gear Solid takes place over the course of 50 years, and the game, more or less, does make sense with itself. You have like a dad and clones, and you get into the modern era, and it makes enough sense if you give it enough rope, where I find it fascinating. Now, I did play some of these games for the first time this year, I never played these when they came out. So I think this game was this series was incredibly important for my gaming education. I think for me, like 2 stood out to me as the mecca of the franchise. 5, I just think was fun to play, but I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
But what makes me the most sad is Kojima was removed from the project. He's never going to make another one, and it's another gaming franchise that's ended. And it's not finished.
Yeah.
Like it's not done, and we're never going to get it. So we are going to hit the 2-hour mark. So I am done talking about this. Derek, why don't you say maybe a couple of words about Metal Gear as a whole, and we do have to kill this.
What else can I say, really? I feel like I've said everything.
Metal Gear as a whole.
As a whole?
Talk about your life in Metal Gear for a minute.
You know what I'd say?
Yeah.
You're pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah.
I mean, I think we should just end it there, right?
Let's do it.
We
You're
got
pretty
to.
good.
This is going to be a long episode. It's pretty good.
Thank you for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with us. This was an incredibly long retrospective. I guess thank you to Kojima for all your work. Please call people back. It's rude.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to end it.
See you next time, folks.
See you guys next time on Goddamn GameCube.